welcome to Who Knew. We are fans of the current series of Doctor Who, and here we discuss our likes, dislikes, and insights of the modern regeneration of the show. Today's episode is The Age of Steel, episode 6 of season 2. Mr. Lumic and his Cybermen take over London and begin the upgrade of the human race. This episode is written by Tom McRae, directed by Graham Harper. It originally aired on the 20th of May, 2006, and was watched by 6.8 million viewers on the overnight ratings.
That's a drop.
Yeah, weird, huh? Let's introduce ourselves. Brian.
Hi, this is Brian.
This is Frank.
This is Auburn.
Hi, this is Arlene.
Hello, this is Kelsey.
And this is Eugene.
And Josh is not here. No, Josh.
We miss Josh.
We miss you, Josh.
He wanted to be here, but he couldn't. Oh, well.
He's already been upgraded.
Delete. Surrounded by Cybermen on the Tyler estate, the Doctor uses the power stored in the TARDIS crystal to disintegrate the circle of Cybermen surrounding them. As the group runs, Mrs. Moore drives up in a van. Once inside the van, they discover that Pete is really working undercover against Lumic. He is their informant, Gemini, who thought he was communicating with government officials rather than this ragtag team of misfits that if you have a problem, if no one else can help, and if you can find them, maybe you can hire the preachers. It's an A-Team reference.
All the young kids are...
So that answers the question from the Rise of the Cybermen. What is Pete doing? He's the
Gemini.
mole. Yep.
Gemini. Frank told us to remember Gemini.
And he's charismatic, and he's a schmoozer, so he's
well
really
connected.
working his way up and working with Lumic to get the information.
Kind of like an anti-Snowden, like where Snowden was a whistleblower. Pete wormed his way up to the very top.
Yeah. And here we also learn about Ricky, what he's really most wanted for.
The parking ticket thing.
But I like
Most
how it's
parking
still a
tickets.
freedom issue.
Yeah. I park where I want.
And the Doctor says, before they know about Gemini, everyone is saying, well, we've still got Pete, so we can execute Pete. And the Doctor is immediately like, talk of executions, and I'm your enemy, and you don't want me as your enemy. So even, again, it's the Doctor's respect for life. Even the bad guy doesn't get to be killed.
You made the A-Team reference, but in the show, it was
Scooby-Doo.
those menacing kids and those Scoobies with the van. You even have the van.
Yeah.
I did like how at the end of the last episode, you never saw the Doctor's right hand in the shot. They
Right.
always
It's framed
it's always
off.
framed,
Yeah.
so you can never see that he's holding the crystal. So you can just whip it out. It's already in his hand. It's like, well, how is he going to get out of this? They
Yeah, I
never
didn't
showed
even-
his hand.
Yeah, I didn't even realize that was the crystal. I thought it was the sonic screwdriver. And I was like, whoa.
can see that.
That's a powerful setting
But
we haven't
then,
seen
so
before.
I'm really glad that they mentioned it in the van. Like he showed it and that it was a need to recharge again. And then I was like, oh, okay. Because I thought that was a sonic screwdriver.
me
And
too.
I was
Right.
like, oh, come on. We know I can't do that, but conveniently I can at this moment. But
Well, if I were a screw, I'd be scared if that was a screwdriver.
But this opening is very much in the line of the classic where there's a cliffhanger and then immediately the cliffhanger is resolved.
oh, yes,
Yeah.
I like
Right.
that.
Yeah.
I love that. Like, yes, wrap it up real quick and then let's move on.
Move on with
continue.
the story. Yeah.
Yep.
Mr. Lumic sends a command to everyone in London wearing ear pods to come to the factory and be upgraded. Those who are not wearing them run in panic and are being deleted by the Cybermen. Our group splits up with plans to meet at the Battersea factory. Pinky watches helplessly as Ricky is killed by the Cybermen.
Yeah, and you don't really even know who got killed.
Right. You're not sure.
Because, Mickey is scowling. And so for a minute I was like, oh, was that Ricky? Do I not remember it correctly? Like,
Because
that
at this
could
point,
be
they're wearing
Ricky.
the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was well done because you
Yeah.
don't know.
Yes, I like that. But it shows, and the last little bits with the van and everything, is that everyone who fantasizes about a parallel world or going back and no, I'm going to be something special. I'm going to be big. They played into that with him being the most wanted. Look at what he could do, and then just
You learn.
a great joke with parking tickets.
Yeah. So he's a lot closer to Mickey than
Yeah.
We
we
realize.
think. Yeah. I like that too. I also thought it was funny that Pete was going on and on about how evil Lumic is and how he's killing people. And I'm like, why are you still wearing your earbuds then? Or
Right.
your ear pods? Like, take them out. And then immediately Doctor was like, take those out. And I'm like, yes, thank you.
But they don't know really what's going on with the earpods yet.
Yeah, but it's just weird. Like the way that Pete was talking, it was almost like he did know that something.
He should have, but I can also see just you've gotten so used to it. You're not thinking about it anymore.
Well, and the doctor even says take the earpods out because Lumic might be
Could
listening.
be listening, yeah.
So he does know that there's a threat to them. He just doesn't know
Right.
how bad.
Yeah.
If Cybermen were attacking now, you wouldn't think to throw your iPhone away.
Or my Fitbit.
Yeah.
Right?
Or your watch. Yeah, like a
Right.
watch.
Well, I will now. I am. That's the first thing that's coming off my wrist is my Fitbit. I'm like, get away from me.
But it's fine now. You can keep it until that moment. Take the chance. And
I'll have Fitbit remind me to take it off.
I like how Rose referenced that she's already seen the Cybermen in her own world. When
Yeah.
you went to go visit the Van Staten and seen in
The episode Dalek.
Right.
yeah, the
They
doctor
know-
refers to it as an old friend.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that was before we started to watch the episode, I was talking to you guys about that. Like, what's the rise of the Cybermen in the canon? Like in the classical, did we ever see them created? Or is this like the first time that we're seeing someone create a Cyberman?
And the answer is yes.
And the answer, yes,
Yeah.
the answer is yes.
They have a completely different creation story in the Doctor's universe.
So there is a creation story in
Yes.
the Doctor's universe.
But I don't think we see it. It's not
Oh,
an
we don't
episode.
see it, yeah.
It's
The Cybermen
spoken.
tell him
It's told.
how they came about
Uh,
in a very weird way of speaking.
No, not that voice.
Whatever
But
do
then
you mean?
it's all in general, all Cybermen are created for the same reason.
Upgrades.
To like upgrade to live forever.
Yeah, the idea came from a science advisor on the show at the time. There was a lot of implants and
Kidney
Artificial
transplants.
hearts.
So they
Way too early for that. But this was more kidney transplants, liver transplants were becoming much more common. And so
he took it further, and like if you would to integrate robotic and technological things to replace organs and stuff.
would you still be human?
So that's where that genesis of that story came from, origin.
And then the whole emotion thing
Yeah,
Right.
comes into play.
taken even further.
Okay.
Yeah. Mr. Crane removes his earpod, singular, and goes to see Mr. Lumic, claiming his earpod malfunctioned. He volunteers for the upgrade, but then attacks Lumic's medical equipment on his wheelchair. The Cybermen throw Crane aside and then kill him. They state that Lumic must receive the upgrade now if he is to live. Lumic protests, but they proceed with the procedure promptly.
Lumic
Deserve
had
it.
mentioned about the suffer in the skin.
Mm-hmm.
And so now it's come back to bite him, where he's suffering in his skin, and the Cybermen say you don't need to. We can upgrade you.
It's also weird how he says, I want my upgrade to be the last, with my last breath. It's like he wants to be the last one, which is weird.
No, I think he wants to stretch out being human for
Human?
as long as possible.
Okay.
It's like
Because he
wants-
knows it's different.
Mhm.
Right. He wants to live, but he doesn't want to give up the humanity.
Human, yeah. And you were saying earlier about the chairs. Were you going to talk about that? Like Davros and
was
Lumic in the
Kelsey?
chair? Or were you
Oh,
saying?
that was just
What?
that was
don't
just
remember.
me being confused. I was the first time I watched this, I confused
Davros?
Lumic with I guess Davros.
But there is a
So-
similarity there. Both of them are in chairs.
It's better that way. It makes him more like sickly. Like you can
Yeah.
see, oh yeah, his body's shutting
Right.
down, so he's
That also might be a myth.
Okay.
Because I read that
What
might have
part's
been a
the
myth. That he's in the wheelchair because the actor broke his leg. It could be a myth. Some people say no, it was always written that he was dying, so he was in a wheelchair.
because that wheelchair is like the best prop. He's got like two backlights right over his shoulders.
So he's very lit.
Yeah, he's well lit, even on like a very flat white background. I think in the previous episode where
Yeah.
he's on the video conference, but man, he's got those two ring lights keeping him depth of field away from the wall.
Right.
So we should always want to take roles that have us in wheelchairs with lighting props.
And Mr. Crane only had the one earpod in,
Yeah.
but the whole other episode, he had both in the entire time. So I don't know if there's a scene different or if he's
Yeah.
Something was cut out.
right. Or he knew what was going on and didn't want to, but needed to be in contact.
Right.
And then
Oh,
the
well.
other information came in, he pulled it out. Also, the newscasters weren't wearing earbuds.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's because of what they were telling people to take the earbuds out, or just because being a newscaster, you don't want to look like you're getting news
From
from someone else.
the
You
bad
want to
guy.
be the authoritative person giving
And
the
also,
information.
newscasters do wear earpieces inside their ears, so
Right,
the
but they wouldn't
producers
know.
can talk to them.
So they're talking. Okay,
So you
thank
can't wear, but you can't wear
both.
But in the earlier episode, that newscaster was wearing the earpods.
Oh,
Was
okay.
he?
Yeah.
So it's
I
the
missed
first
that.
thing you said, Frank, about he took them out because they were telling
Because of the
everyone.
warning.
Now, it doesn't make any sense, but this is how I rationalize it is he's outside London.
Oh, there you go.
So everybody inside London's going crazy with their earpods. Everybody else
Yeah.
Throwing
is
them out.
throwing them out.
Yeah.
And also the reporter is telling everybody throw them out. So that's how the guy's obviously in London, but whatever.
Maybe he was like the camera guy who got promoted after the actual anchors walked out.
Why are you walking off the set? The Scoobies reunite, and the doctor says that they can mourn Ricky later. They need to find a way to stop the factory from upgrading the people. Mrs. Moore joins the doctor in the tunnels to enter the plant from below. Pete and Rose, in the hopes of finding Jackie, put on fake ear pods and enter through the front door with the other controlled people. Jake and Mickey infiltrate the Zeppelin and destroy the earpod transmitter so the people can regain their freedom. Attack on 3 sides: above, between, and below.
So the doctor refers to attacking the Cybus factory at 3 points above, between, and below. This is a reference to the 5 Doctor special when the second Doctor recites an ancient Gallifreyan nursery rhyme about the 3 possible entrances to the tomb of Rassilon
So it's a little callback there.
for the classic fans.
What episode was that in?
The 5
5 Doctor
Doctors,
special.
just like he said.
Yay.
And did anyone else see the Doctor and Mrs. Moore as the Avengers? Not the Marvel ones, but the
Oh,
British.
the
Yeah.
top hat.
Steed
Not the
and
top
Mrs.
hat.
Peel.
What was that? The bowler hat?
Yeah.
The bowling,
And the cat
bowler
suit.
hat?
Right?
Steed and Mrs. Peel. Right.
Right.
It just they had that kind of sophisticated nuances to themselves that I said that could be a great little pair.
Because he's in the suit or the tux, and
Right.
she's just into business.
Right.
I like how. Sorry.
I don't think she would be a good companion. I think she's
Why
too.
not?
She's too
love
aggressive.
her.
I like
Too
her a lot
aggressive.
I kind of agree.
What do you mean by that, Frank?
because of what comes on, and the way that they're moving the Doctor now is not as violent and aggressive, and the way she handles things, she's gone to a point in her life where she's so take charge.
So you
So
mean
it's-
assertive,
No,
not aggressive.
well, if we're going to give it away, she kills the Cybermen, and that's like she's just ready to kill, and that's not what the Doctor wants. I think they would come butt heads. That he would want to find an alternate way to deal with things.
Yes, but wouldn't that be a good character arc opportunity
It
for
could.
Mrs. Moore? I think she would make a great companion. I think Mrs. Moore is companion potential.
See, I could see that. At first, I did agree with you, and now I'm worrying. I wonder if she's past that line or not.
Maybe, but the Doctor also starts out very angry in seasons
And softens up.
and changes.
But we've already had that
because the
storyline.
companion. No, I think we're about to have that.
No, with the
No,
Ninth
With
Doctor.
the Ninth Doctor, we've had that.
We've dealt
Oh,
with
the
that.
Ninth.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's just one of those things. I don't know if she would have gone on, what they would have done.
But still, even with the Doctor, no one's past the point of
No return?
Yeah, past no return. Like
Right.
there's always a potential of doing better with everyone that goes with the Doctor.
That's true.
Like that's the Doctor always sees the good, like that can come from being with someone instead of the negative. And that's why we have like bad companions like Adam.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, I agree, because I don't think she would be a bad man. It's just, I don't know. It just seemed like I could just see so much more headbutting. I guess they do that with another companion later on anyway, so maybe it could work.
Okay.
but also we can't forget Mickey here where he compares himself to the Tin Dog again. Just get out of
Yeah.
the way.
Yeah, this scene to me, I kind of realize now that this episode, these 2 episodes, this is Mickey's story.
Oh yeah.
And this is his high point where he's like, it's like, well, what about me? After the Doctor gives everybody the plans.
Assignments, yeah.
And also we get that funny line, you're just making this up as you go along. Yes. And I do it well.
Brilliantly.
He the Doctor doesn't assign Mickey. To me, that doesn't ring very true. I don't think the doctor would have, in this situation, forgotten to give Mickey an assignment. He would have given Mickey an assignment. I think that's a little bit of not.
Well, how many
It
people-
doesn't fit.
But how many people watching it forgot about Mickey?
I did. I
lot of
did.
people
I
Really?
forgot
Okay.
about Mickey until he was like, "What about me?" And you can even I think that must. I mean, we'd have to go back and watch it, but it had to have been because they were deliberately not cutting to Mickey.
Sure.
Yes.
And then when you do cut to Mickey, he's in the back, like
Yeah.
he's like 5 feet behind
Yeah, the
everybody
staging,
else.
yeah.
So that's why I'm like, well, maybe that's why the doctor also forgot about him.
In the dark, in dark lighting, he's wearing
Stop
dark
hiding
clothes.
in the shadows, Mickey. Get up here, and we'll give you an assignment.
Oh, okay. So it's Mickey's fault again, just because of where he was standing.
I guess so. Yeah.
To me, it just isn't the best. It doesn't seem to fit completely, but it is nice because it then does provide Mickey the chance to say, "No, I am going to help. I am going to do this." He decides what he's going to do. I'm going to go with Jake. He doesn't ask for an assignment. He says it. Jake doesn't want it. He argues.
Ooh.
You know.
What if the doctor didn't forget him, but he was waiting for Mickey to volunteer
To stand up.
Yeah.
to step up?
I'm with you.
You know? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's more like the doctor's personality to do that anyway. It's going to be like,
Thank you.
It's also where the doctor changes, and you can see in his face that he now respects
Oh
Mickey.
yeah.
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 That everything has changed at that point.
And then the scene comes to an end with Mickey's walking away. The doctor says, "Mickey," he turns, "Good luck." And he walks a little bit further away, turns back and looks again and sees the doctor and Rose
Embracing.
hugging, smiling, embracing. And then when you cut back to Mickey, I think that's foreshadowing. And now that we've seen the entire episode, you can kind of see that Mickey knows where this is going. And it's a little foreshadowing to the viewer that no, the Rose and Mickey storyline
It's coming
as a couple ends at that moment. It's small. It's not a big thing, but it is kind of, he still cares for Rose, of course, but I think it's at that moment where he's like, I've got other things I need to do.
They're fine without me.
And they're fine.
They've got each
And
they've got
I've
each
reached
other.
a point where, okay, I'm not going to pine for her anymore.
and just earlier in the episode, he kisses Rose.
Yeah.
So like he kissed her like when they were all split up. So he grabs her, kisses her. And this shows more of like, okay, I'm really over this. I don't need them anymore.
But
I'm
with no
moving
animosity.
on. No, just
there's no jealousy there. I don't, maybe
was-
a twinge of jealousy,
no,
but
it looked more like a decision.
Yes.
Like the decision was made and then thank you for affirming my decision. And
Yes.
he moves on.
yes.
But not jealousy.
Yes. And I think that's when you realize, oh, this story is about Mickey. This is Mickey's story. And this is where Mickey's story has led to.
There's a nice throwback to the Ninth Doctor about Mickey the Idiot.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I was wondering.
And it was a sweet throwback. It wasn't, calling him an idiot, but it was
It'll come back later, too,
Nice.
in this episode. The Doctor and Mrs. Moore find a row of Cybermen dormant in the tunnels. They trip a warning sensor which activates the Cybermen, but the Doctor and Mrs. Moore escape. They proceed down a corridor, and Mrs. Moore takes out a Cyberman with an electric magnetic bomb. The Doctor examines the Cybermen and discovers an emotional inhibitor. If they can deactivate the inhibitor, everyone will remember who they are and what has happened. The shock would kill them. Mrs. Moore says that they must do it or the Cybermen will kill everyone else. Suddenly, from behind her, a Cyberman electrocutes Mrs. Moore and the Doctor is captured. There's great exposition in this scene, but done well.
Very well. Yeah. The exposition really makes you feel for Mrs. Moore as a character, as a person. She has a backstory.
And a real
Again,
name.
you don't need it.
Yeah.
You don't need that information, and yet having that information adds an emotional level.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
And we learn-
knowing that information doesn't move the plot along.
No.
But it makes us feel for her.
And we learn her name is Angela Price in real life.
Yes, and that she got the name Mrs. Moore from a book. And I always wonder if that's Mrs. Moore from the book A Passage to India by Forster, because Mrs. Moore is a great character in that book. And it's one of those it's one of those things where the character is coming to the end of her life and she's kind of wondering if everything comes to nothing. if life in the end means nothing. And she's a very intriguing character in that book. So I always take it as the writer is saying that Mrs. Moore got the name from Passage to India.
Yeah.
This is a reference to The Invasion, which is the third story, the third series of the Second Doctor, dealing with the Cybermen.
The Cybermen, yeah.
And the reference of the emotional shock will kill them, because that's what they did in that episode. And that episode was introduced Unit back in this, because I thought Unit was more the third and fourth, but the second one
Worked with Unit, yeah.
worked with Unit, and also had the second viewing of Colonel Stewart, who now is Brigadier Stewart.
Lethbridge Stewart.
Lethbridge Stewart.
Yeah.
But that was in the second. Again, I only don't know very much of the Second Doctor.
Yeah.
A lot of his episodes were...
Yeah, the
missing.
Brigadier wasn't a regular during the second. He only had, I think he had 2 appearances, and that was it.
But he was on for a while.
Long
It's like,
time.
wow.
Yeah, very long time. Do you also like the beginning of the exposition?
Some people don't know the classic. But the Brigadier does come up later episodes.
Okay, you remember how we fanboyed on Sarah Jane? The Brigadier is
Another
pretty
one.
awesome.
Yeah.
And so just laying the groundwork here that the Brigadier was in the second, third, fourth going on Doctors. He does come back and he does get referenced in the new Who. So we'll bring that up when that comes up. But
Yes.
now you put the groundwork of who the Brigadier and how important he was to the Doctor.
And do you like, with the exposition scene, again, there's so much in this scene. Doctor asks Mrs. Moore who she is, how'd she get involved in all this, and the first thing she says is, I used to be ordinary.
Oh, I missed that.
Yeah. Again, there's that reference of, she said, I was just an ordinary person working at a job, happened to be at Cybus, saw something I wasn't supposed to be. Suddenly I had men with guns in my face. I had to run. I had to learn. I had to become techie. I had to do all these things. But she starts off that little exposition scene with, I used to be ordinary.
Yeah.
But he's known her for 5 minutes and he didn't ask that stuff about Mickey. He knows more about her than he did about him.
Yeah, but it just proves that in the show, if you could be a good companion and don't become one, you're dead.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Happens so many times.
The scene also with the Cybermen dying. Did we get there yet?
Yes.
Yeah, where it's so cold.
Yes.
Ugh.
When the emotion inhibitor is broken.
That's a great scene.
Yeah. And Gareth?
Yeah,
Gareth.
He's not supposed to
He's
see
not
me.
supposed to see me.
Yeah.
So it is a person who is going to get married
That's
the next
so
morning.
sad.
That's sad.
And then we get
Yeah.
that blue light to indicate that we're sad.
Oh, that something evil is going to happen.
Yeah.
Rose and Pete enter the factory and are stopped by a Cyberman. It recognizes Pete Tyler and states that it was once referred to as Jackie Tyler.
Oh, and then walking into the
The factory.
conversion factory, the conversion
slaughterhouse.
center.
Yeah.
Oh, so creepy.
Yeah.
So terrifying. And I also thought it was interesting watching it the second time around. The announcements that you hear being made, like, what was it? Chamber 10 is now ready. Chamber 8 is now ready. It's a Cyberman voice.
Yeah.
There are no humans in charge of this whole thing going on. Like Cybermen have taken over the factory. And I just thought that was adds to the creepiness factor of it all.
And it's moving like clockwork.
Yeah.
I was watching this time and the Cyberman, who is Jackie, reacts to Pete. Because Pete was saying, we're trying to find Jackie. Do you think Jackie's here? And then she hears it.
Oh, you
Here's that
think the
reference
Cyberman
and
came
turns.
over because
Yes. And then
they
recognizes
heard
Pete.
Oh.
Yeah, I do.
I just thought it was they were walking by or something.
I've always thought that, but this time I saw, as he's speaking and mentioned Jackie, the Cyberman
Okay, they
turns.
cut to a Cyberman turning.
Noticing.
Interesting. Yeah, no, that's just it's very, especially watching it the first time, very terrifying as all those people, Rose and Pete, because they know what's going on. And it's like, am I about to be walked into this pod thing and cut up into bits and then spit out as a Cyberman? Yeah,
Yeah,
very, very
Yeah, Rose
creepy.
they just do it. There's no prep. There's no worry or conscious to try and do it. And there's only
You don't need to be prepared. You
Yeah,
just go.
they just killed it. They just do it. They just run right through it.
They're being assimilated. There it is.
Yeah.
Now, this wasn't my Jackie or our Jackie.
Right.
So I didn't have the same impact.
But you
It
have
didn't
some
feel like-
impact.
I had some.
Yeah.
Some, but it didn't feel like it's,
Well, because we know Jack. Sorry.
Yeah. First time I watched it, I remember being really upset.
okay.
Even though
It's a different
the
Jackie.
parallel Jackie had been so horrible to Rose earlier. And I think Billy Piper and the actor who plays Pete, they do a good job of helping us feel attached to this parallel Jackie. Like they're visibly shaken, upset.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that helps the viewer, even though we're like, oh, but she wasn't a very good Jackie. Like, she wasn't our Jackie.
Also, when they say, well, maybe we can help her, so they kind of think for a minute, get
that one away.
that one,
Yeah.
Yeah,
and they
yeah.
turn and go, which one is she?
Right.
That's heartbreaking.
That to me is the heartbreaking, where it's like, there's nothing we can do now. She's gone. She could be
Anybody.
right next to us.
Yeah.
She could be 30 feet away at this point, and there's nothing they can do. So at this point, the other Cybermen take Pete and Rose to the cyber control. Jake and Mickey make their way aboard the Zeppelin and find the transmitter control behind a protective barrier. They decide to blow up the Zeppelin to stop the transmission. In their attempt to find an override, they trip a sensor and activate a Cyberman that is behind them. Mickey has a plan. Yes, Mickey. When it attacks Mickey, he dodges, and the Cyberman breaks the protective barrier, destroying the transmitter, and is electrified in the process.
I like how Mickey did that.
Yes.
Tell us about that, Eugene.
It's like a bull, and the Cyberman is the bull, and then Mickey's the bullfighter.
Oh.
And so he just moves out of the way, and then the Cyberman destroys the thing that he couldn't get.
transmitter.
The transmitter.
Like, oh, Mickey, you're
Good job,
so
Mickey.
smart. You're so fine. You blow my mind. Hey, Mickey.
Or blow the transmitter.
Yes.
But that it actually was his plan.
Yeah.
It wasn't part of a plan, and then it just luckily works out.
And also, Jake can't break into the computer. And
But
so
Mickey can?
Yeah, Mickey can't. So it makes me wonder, is Mickey using the Buffalo password?
What?
That
forgot
means
about that.
nothing to me.
What is that?
That's the password from earlier,
the Slovene
season before,
episodes.
the Slovene episode. The doctor keeps saying, just use the password Buffalo. Oh, anytime you're asked for a password, use Buffalo. Use Buffalo. Use Buffalo. And I think there's even a later episode where he's like, use Buffalo.
Go away.
Real quick. Just use Buffalo. So it's like, oh, and Jake's all impressed that he can get into the computer. And I'm like,
Then
he's just
yes.
using Buffalo.
Then yes, Mickey used Buffalo for sure.
The doctor is brought to the main control room where he is reunited with Rose and Pete.
In the funniest way.
Yeah. He's like, oh, if I get captured, I'll just, Rose and Pete will help me.
Pan. Best use of the camera pan we've seen this whole season. He's like, oh, but Pete and Rose will save me. Pan to Pete
Hey, how
and
you guys
Rose.
doing?
Oh, maybe not.
They meet the upgraded Lumic, who is now the cyber controller. They hear the people running from the factory and know that Jake and Mickey have succeeded. Mickey hacks into the surveillance system and sees the doctor, Rose, and Pete with the cyber controller. The doctor notices the surveillance system working and communicates with Mickey to find the code to turn off the emotional inhibitors. Mickey sends the information to Rose's phone. She passes the phone to the doctor, who connects it to the main computer. The code is sent to all the Cybermen, who start to remember what has happened. They cannot accept what they have become, and the Cybermen all start to explode.
That
And
was
the
a
camera
bit
shakes.
much.
Camera shakes, but
The exploding head of the Cyberman. Now that was a bit much. Does
did-
anyone else agree with me? Like,
they
They had
do.
to show it.
But they
type
do that a
of-
lot in the classic series. They even knock it off
Okay.
with a what do you call that? A blunt object. Yeah, like a pipe,
cricket bat?
like a pipe or something.
okay.
Yeah. So that's kind of they do that all the time.
What I did like in that scene was one of the Cybermen saw its reflection,
Oh yeah,
and he like touches his face, and the doctor
notices.
and it just goes back to the doctor feeling completely heartbroken because even though they're not good, that they're still people, and he just annihilated another group of people.
Well, and the people
Yeah.
are good.
Yeah.
The Cybermen are bad, but now this is a person again, who is completely innocent in all of this.
And even though it had to happen, it's like, why do I have to keep going into this routine of
Some of the doctor genocide count. I don't know what this is yet. I've lost track.
Again, to bring it up, when the doctor realizes that Mickey is listening and he starts his speech, and to signal to Mickey what he's talking about, he starts talking about how the world is full of ordinary
people.
stupid, brilliant people. That's this world. Ordinary people are the key. And he's sending us the signal. But again, they're using, back lack of a better word, that motif of ordinary, and the extraordinary can become, or the ordinary can become extraordinary. And I love that Mickey picks it up right away. He knows exactly what the doctor's talking about. He's taking the clues, and boom, it works. I mean, the whole idea of it's a little silly.
Yeah.
I mean, awfully
what did
convenient.
they slam the cell phone into? I'm
An
just going to
iPod
say
charger?
parallel world. Parallel world. That would work, I guess. Because that was weird.
All parallel worlds have USB.
And even says any idiot could do this or something.
Yeah.
He
And
uses
I thought
idiot a
idiot was
lot.
the trigger.
And that's
Yeah.
the ninth.
Yeah.
The other reference
Yeah.
back to the Ninth Doctor was the idiot, Mickey the
I
idiot.
figured that was the trigger.
Yeah.
For,
Yeah.
for Mickey was when he said idiot.
Yeah.
And then he was like, oh,
That's all.
Talking to
that's
me.
me. Hey.
But it
Idiot.
works, and the
Yeah.
doctor keeps talking, and just
Mhm.
Because this is his weapon. Words
People.
are his weapon.
words.
Oh,
And
words.
yeah,
I was
I
gonna
did
say
think of that same
people.
time that
Oh.
Davis says the 10th Doctor, his weapon are words, and in this speech,
This
I thought
cements
this
it.
was a perfect example
Yeah,
of that.
Exactly.
Well,
And
he knows
then-
how to stall. He's a good staller.
No, and then the Cybermen wouldn't get it because they don't understand emotion.
Right.
So like these words are just words, not anything else.
Yeah, to them it would seem like stalling, and it's not. He's
Mhm.
actually sending a message to a person who happens to be able to turn on the monitor and the sound to the exact room where this is going on, and the doctor can figure out that the monitor is on. But anyway, it's fine.
Whatever.
Didn't they use that in Girl in the Fireplace? Weren't we like at some point watching something behind a monitor and they were like, is there sound?
Right.
Oh, sound.
Yeah.
And
Well, the
at that
doctor
point I was
connected it.
like, oh. Well, even the doctor doing it made me groan. And so this just made me groan again because I'm like, oh,
But
it's
also,
not that
especially
easy.
with Mickey just hitting the keyboard. It wasn't
Yeah.
like he was actually hitting the keys. He was just sort
Right.
of pushing down.
He was
and,
acting
oh, there it
keyboard.
goes. Yes, acting keyboard. I like
Yeah,
that.
why don't actors type? But that's a whole other podcast. They just like pound the computer. Hello, computer.
But here we get the new version of the cyber controller, which I think is really cool, and he has the same sort of wheelchair motif that Lumic had. So
Yeah, which
cool.
makes me think maybe it was written in.
Mhm.
The chair
Yes.
was written into the
the script, yeah.
Yeah, I really think it was, and that it wasn't that the actor broke his leg.
Yeah. Well, back to the cyber controller. I like that there's the exposed brain, so you can see that.
Oh,
and
yeah,
stuff like that.
that was.
And he has extra plugs for, I guess, power or something. It just makes him stand out as opposed to like the classic ones where one of them he just didn't have the handle, and that was the leader on the head. So this one stands out more.
This almost makes you think of a lot of other science fiction where they don't know what they want to make it look like. He's
Yeah.
not just a regular Cyberman, but since he has a chair, the Cybermen build him with a chair.
Right.
Because that's what he was. So they're improving and upgrading what he was rather than fixing it.
Because they don't have imagination.
Oh, yeah.
That was removed.
Jake wants to fly the Zeppelin away from the explosions, but Mickey won't leave Rose behind. He fights Jake for control and calls Rose to tell her to make her way to the roof. She, Pete, and the doctor race to get there as the factory burns and falls apart around them. The cyber controller disconnects from his chair and chases them. Mickey drops a rope ladder, and the three hold on while the Zeppelin slowly flies away from the flames. The cyber controller grabs the bottom rung of the ladder and begins to climb after them. The doctor gives Pete the sonic, and Pete uses it to cut the rope below him, dropping the cyber controller into the burning factory to its death.
This is very much like The Empty Child with Rose dangling from a barrage balloon.
Yes.
Also, this they have the same level of technology as us, and it's different in a way, and I get that. But this is a big Zeppelin, and the ladder is wood and rope. It's not made of metal. I just kind of noticed that for the first time. Going,
Yeah.
well, it's a good thing you don't want to use the sonic on the wood part because it wouldn't work.
Right.
Or that the ladder isn't retractable in any way.
Right.
It just falls down.
Like,
It's just, yeah, that's
you're
just.
on your own. Sorry.
Like Mickey can hack into another surveillance system, but can't retract the ladder. Just so weird.
Because it looks like it's dropped.
Yeah,
It's
it
like,
is,
like
but I'm just saying.
thrown over on a hot air balloon kind of a
Well, it
rope
did say
ladder.
the emergency ladder, but still.
And isn't it Pete when they run up to it? You've got to be kidding.
I'm so glad Pete caught the sonic screwdriver.
Yeah.
I mean, you dropped it to him. You didn't actually hand it to him. You just dropped it. Catch.
That would have been a short episode.
And then when the cyber controller stands up and you get that Frankenstein, no. It's like, see, George Lucas, that's how you make it work. and also one other thing, when everything, when they're running on the roof and they get onto the ladder and they're escaping, Rose says to the doctor with full joy and like not surprised, but just really, really happy, Mickey did it.
Yeah.
Mickey made all this happen. Mickey made us, we survived and we stopped the bad guys. Mickey did it. And it's like, and it's just kind of like, to me, that's just kind of like the period at the end of Mickey's story.
Mm-hmm.
I did like how she was surprised. How do you know how to fly a Zeppelin? PlayStation. Okay.
Right. Back at the TARDIS, the Doctor inserts the now fully charged crystal back into the console. The TARDIS begins to power up, but they only have 5 minutes in which to leave. The longest 5 minutes ever.
I know.
Rose tells Pete that she is his daughter from a parallel world, and he can't deal with that.
She doesn't right out say, I'm your daughter. She implies it and then later calls him dad. But I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, I know what you mean, but this is short-handing it.
And I kind of like that. I mean, I hate it, but I kind of like the fact that the writers had the courage to have Pete not be able to deal with it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
to me, that makes him more human.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody's perfect. Not everybody could handle something like that. And he's just like, I gotta go.
Yeah.
Well, because this Pete never had a daughter where the other one did, so that it kind of makes sense.
And he just lost his wife.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I probably the first time watching it, I wasn't okay with that, but I know the rest of the story, so I'm like, I'm okay with him having
I'm okay
a
with it
human.
now.
Yeah, I'm okay with him having that
Wink,
human,
wink.
taking that human moment
Yeah.
and reacting like you said.
Where sometimes you just, at that moment it was flee,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and so he just,
And then, if you notice, Big Ben is regular Big Ben.
What do you mean? Like a goof?
It's not square. It's
not
round.
square.
That's the scene that you see it the best because
Yeah,
the
this
So
two
they
shot.
made a mistake.
They made a mistake. Yeah.
Someone get on IMDb. What's that goof section?
Somebody already
the goof
did it.
section?
No, maybe not.
Maybe it was Cybus Industries that made the square one, and now that Cybus, when people immediately just ran out and ripped the square parts down.
It was
Pete says that he has to stay and deal with the other Lumic factories and the dormant Cybermen still left on this world. The Doctor tells Jake to find Angela Price's family and tell them of her sacrifice. Mickey decides to stay on this world to help destroy the remaining Cybermen, and also because his grandmother is still alive here and she needs him. The Doctor says they only got here by accident and that they can never come back. They will never see him again. They say their goodbyes, and the TARDIS leaves and materializes in Jackie's apartment back in the normal universe. Mickey and Jake leave London to liberate Paris in a van.
So I just want to throw something out here.
Sure.
Is Mickey an upgraded Ricky? And I know that may sound really, really harsh, but I thought of it when you guys were when you were telling us how Jake doesn't want to go back, but Mickey turns the TARDIS around, and it made me
The Zeppelin?
or what did I say? Did I say the TARDIS?
Yeah.
No, not the TARDIS.
The Zeppelin.
When Mickey turns the Zeppelin around to go back and get
Rose.
would Ricky have done the same? Probably not, because Jake didn't want to do that. So is Mickey an upgraded Ricky? But not in the way that the Cybermen were trying to upgrade humanity, but I guess kind of in that way.
No, I know what you
think
mean.
it's a really harsh thing to say, but I
understand your question.
Kind of like a
I think if it's more of an emotional level, he's more mature because Mickey's been through more, because his gran has already died and he's already traveled throughout the universe. So he's matured. And throughout this experience of spending time with the Doctor, he's still maturing, and he's matured even more. So in my mind, because it's like, we don't know if Gran's alive or not, before he goes to Paris, he's going to stop by his Gran's house and fix the rug on the stairs. And then he's going to go to Paris.
Or
so
take
it's like,
her with
No,
them.
I think she's fine. She doesn't need to be put in harm's way.
I like Eugene's theory.
Take
What's that?
her along.
No, when the ear pods activated, she was upstairs, and so she cyberly walked down the stairs, tripped, and died.
No, she's still alive. This is a hopeful scenario.
Well, she hasn't been converted because she did walk slowly.
Yes.
So all the other people have been converted.
She's still walking somewhere.
Oh, but that'd be horrible.
But she just wakes up. I can't see.
Where am I?
Oh, that's terrible.
So Eileen, you're saying, as you were saying, emotions, like what Mickey has been through emotionally and his growth and his the way he's grown emotionally makes him
I think
a better.
I agree with that.
I don't know.
I agree.
I guess my theory is, was this something that the writers had written in to have Mickey replace Ricky and kind of like be make you think like about the whole upgraded humanity thing?
I think when they first introduced Ricky and Mickey, and Ricky was the cool one who was doing things. He
was a
taking
resistance
action,
leader.
resistance leader. You thought of him
number
as
one.
the number one
Parking
wanted in London. And Mickey was still taking a back seat. And it was when they were together, he's saying, your friends are cool. And it's like, well, I just tag along. Well, that makes you cool too. Really? You think so? So I think the dominant one was Ricky. But as you see this, everything that Mickey's gone through, and when he made a stance for himself and told the doctor, you're not going to follow me. I'm going to help. I'm going to do this. He became the better version of the two, not an upgraded Ricky, but
a
he just
better
elevated
version.
himself, I guess, upgraded Mickey.
Yeah.
But he became the better version of the two. He has now what he was lacking before that Ricky had. But with his experience and emotions and everything he's fought to get, he is now the better of the two.
This is just showing us that what makes a person better is their emotional maturation.
Yes.
Oh well,
So-
if you're able to learn from it, yes. Like
Well, that's why for
That's-
maturity.
maturity-
I guess that's what I
maturity
mean.
comes with
I'm just clarifying some more. I agree with what you're saying.
Yes.
There's a deleted scene of the ending with Ricky and Jake that says that they're lovers.
What do you mean a deleted scene?
There's a deleted scene on the DVD that's included. That
Okay.
they didn't include.
No, I thought that as we're going through it,
Mm-hmm.
but I thought that was just maybe a fan, something that had said that. Maybe I read it somewhere.
No, it's
But
on the
seeing
DVD.
it-
It's on the
But
DVD.
I didn't see that part. I never
Yeah,
saw the deleted scene. But you can see, some of its reactions when Ricky is dead.
And that's why he's so
and his
hard.
Oh, you're saying
animosity
Ricky and
against
Jake.
Oh,
Mickey.
I thought you said Mickey.
Yeah, I heard.
No, and his animosity
I said
towards
Ricky.
Mickey is because you're
I
not
can,
that.
yeah, I can see that with Ricky.
So that's why when he delivers the news and they don't know, is this Mickey or is this Ricky? Jake takes it really hard in that scene. And
Well, he
that's
does.
why.
Okay, I can see
Oh,
that.
okay.
Yeah. But when you
I
said
thought
Mickey, it was
I thought you were saying like they're going off to Paris and then they become lovers, and I was like, what?
No, in the scene, they do that, but then Jake tells Mickey that he and Ricky were a thing.
Oh, I see. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Okay, so the deleted scene happens between Mickey and Jake, but Jake is telling Mickey about him and Ricky.
Yes, correct.
Too close.
Confirmed.
But that also explains that one line where it's like, I know it's hard me being in his
face, like his face.
face,
Yeah.
his
Yeah.
body. I'm not him. We can't have that relationship.
Yes.
It clarifies that if that little scene came before that. But we
Okay.
can still fight in his name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
I actually kind of
nice.
like that, actually.
That's nice.
I did
I'm
too.
surprised you.
Why'd
you
they
have the
delete
DVD.
it?
Why?
No, because you have the DVD, and normally
But
we
also,
like to explore the
This
DVD.
was 10 years ago. And even the idea,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, that
It might have been
something
too
marriage wasn't
blatant
even
like that.
thought
No.
of
Yeah.
yet
Right.
until 2008.
Yeah. Nicholas Briggs also does the voice of the Cybermen. He does the voice of the Daleks, and so he's doing like double duty here. And I think the one with Lumic is really cool that you can still hear Lumic's real voice over
Yeah.
the cyber voice.
Yeah.
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 To help distinguish.
That the cyber controller is different.
And also
and that,
when
the,
you have
that
a,
the cyber controller is Lumic.
and also when you have an actor like that playing Lumic, you kind of want to use
Yeah.
Yes,
his acting.
I agree.
Even as a Cyberman, you want to give.
And his voice, even as a human, was kind of Cyberman-ish
Mm-hmm.
from the beginning.
I like Jackie's reaction to Rose
At the very end, or
at the very end. It was, oh, you're back. And then she sees how Rose is so distraught.
I was like, what happened? What happened?
And it's like, what did you do? What did you do to her? Kind of looking at the doctor. Where'd you go? Far away. It's nothing, but she knows that she just has to comfort Rose right now. And I just think she's going to give it to the doctor soon, but I got to deal with Rose right now. And where's Mickey? She's the one who asked where he is. And you wouldn't get that from a lot of the other characters in the other episodes.
That scene, watching it again, makes me more sad because she loses Mickey and she's already lost Rose, sort of. So now she's lost Mickey.
Right.
And it's like, oh.
But I do have to disagree with you that I don't think that she's going to give it to the doctor later. I don't see them. I think Jackie at this point in the character arc, and especially the way the doctor answers her, far away, so very far away, I think she immediately knows something happened to the two of them. Yes, her daughter has been put into danger. Her daughter has had something bad happen, right? But I think at this point, I don't think she would go after the doctor and say, how could you do this to my daughter? I actually think later on Jackie would be like, what happened to you both?
And
that's how I read
it's Jackie. I think first she'll blow up and then she'll
But
get that.
I think she trusts the doctor now.
yeah, I think it's moved on. And I mean, not to jump the timeline, but there is an episode coming up where when she greets the doctor, that the relationship is completely turned around and completely changed. I think so. I take it now, maybe in hindsight, as she's progressed a few more steps. I really don't see her as like angry, at least in the actor's face. Like, you know, in the hug, looking at the doctor, like, I'm going to, like, she
true. I
would
think I
have,
see her.
like she would have at World War III.
That's true.
I think at this point, she's like, what happened to the two of you? And, you know, of course, she doesn't want to have that happen to Rose, and she knows that traveling with the doctor is dangerous, but she's kind of come to terms with that because she can't stop Rose. She's accepted it. So now it's, doctor, what happened to the both of you?
Yeah, it was more of the face of like, what happened?
Yeah.
Like behind them without her trying to notice. It was like,
and she can also see the impact on the doctor's face. So I think at this point, it's like, no, she has feelings for the doctor too. She doesn't love him or anything like that. But, you know, there's a growing like
Yes, I agree.
there. So I really see it as, you guys, what happened to you? And also just like, oh, she saw her mom, who wasn't her mom, but she saw her mom die.
Yeah.
And this horrible thing happened to her. And then she walks through the door and her mom's there. I'm going to get all emotional.
I also like the parallel reboot of the Cybermen. Like, we're in a parallel universe that I think was handled much better than, like, say, the Star Trek movies now.
You mean in terms of a reboot?
Yeah, in terms of a reboot and starting from parallel world, I kind of like the way they handled the Cybermen better.
Oh, that this is a parallel world and the reboot of Star Trek is a parallel
because they go
world.
back to the, you know, you can have your both versions, sort of.
Well, without talking about Star Trek, I do like that they cleverly did go into a parallel world
Yes.
to have a completely fresh, new, and quite frankly, cleaner,
Yes, I agree.
less convoluted origin story to a race of Cybermen.
Yes.
So they still have the Cybermen, and it's not as convoluted as it is in the classic show.
Yeah, I agree with that. I still like that they kept the tear duct.
I do too. Which actually, this came back for a while
it was
on the
gone.
classic show. The tear duct was gone. If you see on the Cybermen's eyes, they have two little. So each Cyberman has murdered two people because they have the tear duct.
It's sent to prison.
It's because the humans are crying when they're made into Cybermen.
Tears are acidic, so
It's the last emotion. That
I
they'll
thought they
ever-
looked like monocles, so that's why. like not emotion, it's a monocle.
You will be upgraded. Jolly good. Pip, pip. Spit spot.
does this episode live up to the promise of the first episode? Who wants to go first?
I am so
Kelsey.
torn because, like I said, I went into watching the first part not excited, got excited, go into the second part with that excitement, and I don't know. Until the last scene where we have the goodbyes between Mickey and Rose and the doctor, I was not loving this episode as much as I loved the first one. So I'm very torn because it ends so well. But getting up there, I feel like, I don't know. I'm just going to have to say no. It does not live up.
Yeah, I actually agree with you. I'm like, oh, this is a little slower. Okay, we know or maybe it's just because I'm watching it for the second time. So I'm trying to remember how I felt. So because there's not much of a memory, I'm going to say no. It doesn't live up to it.
Yeah, I'll agree with you guys. I think the Rise of the Cybermen asked a lot of questions and was more like inquisitive in like this alternate universe. What does it mean to, be upgraded? What does it mean to be a person? Like, it had all that build up to like finally revealing the Cybermen in like the very last like bit of the show. And this, now that the monster's revealed, I don't know. I agree. It just is missing something that the first part had more of.
The first part was such a setup. It really didn't get to the heart of the story until the very end. Because sometimes in the first episode, at least halfway through, you get to really what the meat of the story is going to be. And this, we didn't get that till the very end. So there's a lot of buildup in the first episode, and the second episode had a lot more of the action and a lot less of the character development story. But they did have Mrs. Moore down in the tunnels, which was great. It had a lot more where Mickey actually came into his own and got that his own power. So I am going to say yes. I think it does live up to it. It does complete the story that was only set up in the first one. And so I think it does do, for the most part, a good job of that. Having Lumic be the main villain is, I think, seems to be a little bit weak rather than the Cybermen be the villain. But I think overall it does. I would say yes, it does.
But then that makes me think like the Arch, like the 2 episodes. You watched this initially with both episodes, and maybe that's why your memory of the first episode wasn't that good, because you didn't like the overall story. And it's just like the first one was just a lot of anticipation, so it brought like anxiety, and like you really were into it, edge of your seat. And this one was just kind of like you were just building on the first episode, and the second episode you're just going down the hill.
But the first episode had a lot of confusion. You didn't know why Pete was involved. Why was he so high when he just had energy drinks and had built that company up, and what was going on? So none of that was answered until the second episode. So there was just a lot of nothing's going on. Everyone has ear pods and there's nothing wrong.
Yeah.
Why does the doctor think something's wrong? There's no actual evidence. Why are these preachers around trying to find out what Lumic is doing when there's nothing really showing there's any ill intent in the common
that's what
people?
makes it fun. It's kind of like there's something wrong, but we have no idea. So the
Kind of like a
mystery.
Scooby-Doo episode where the first 15 minutes is really cool, and then the wrap up is kind of like, oh, it's just a man in a mask.
Pesky kids.
And I would have gotten away with it.
No. I'm torn. I'm probably going to come down on the side of yes, it does, but it definitely is not as strong as the first half. But it completes the story. It tells the story. You get, it's great Mickey stuff. I mean, you get the emotional inhibitor thing. I mean, you really feel for those people, but then turn around, their heads are exploding. But still, it is borderline. But I would say it's a fine conclusion to the story. I almost kind of wonder if it would be a really, really great 90-minute episode rather than a full 2 hours.
I think it would be.
I think it would be.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes that happens when you get 2-parters.
For me, I'm going to have to say yes, this does complete the story, because I wouldn't want to miss all the emotional benchmarks, I guess, that we hit in the second, the Age of Steel episode. Like the stuff with Mrs. Moore, and then Mickey's departure is very emotional. I got a little misty-eyed at the end when he's saying goodbye to Rose and the doctor, and then this is also just geeking out a little bit more, but when Mickey does leave with Jake at the end, to me, that is, it echoes Casablanca, because now Mickey becomes Ricky. And then he goes to Paris.
Oh, yeah.
See? So,
But an upgraded
And it's the start
Ricky.
of a beautiful friendship.
yeah.
Better Ricky.
So to me, and he's saying goodbye to the person he loved or loves.
Oh,
Get on that TARDIS.
Rose and Ilsa.
And don't look
You
back.
can't compare it to Casablanca.
I'm not comparing
just
it.
did.
I'm echoing it. And then also there's a Battersea reference to Pink Floyd's Sheep, all the people marching in. And,
Oh, yeah.
and then there's even a live a performance of
Album cover.
Yeah, because there's that factory with the smoke towers. There's a pig on the Pink Floyd cover, but in this episode, it's the Lumic Cyber Zeppelin. So I think those two like geek out moments make it for me.
It lives up
Yes,
because of those moments.
for my inner
So we
geek.
need Josh to be the tiebreaker.
We are 50-50 on Age of Steel.
Or you, our faithful, loyal viewers, you be the tiebreaker.
So you've heard our views. Let us know what you think. Do you think Mrs. Moore would have made a great companion with the Doctor? Email us at whoknewpodcast@gmail.com. That wraps up Age of Steel, and we will see you next time when the future becomes the present.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Who Knew?
Our wonderful theme music is by Michael Grady.
You can find his work at
theuniverseexplodes.com.
You can find this show in several places.
Follow us on Twitter at Who Knew Podcast.
Subscribe, review, and listen to us on iTunes and Stitcher.
Or our YouTube channel, youtube.com/whoknewpodcast.
All of our episodes are on whoknewpodcast.com.
You can leave comments there or email us at
whoknewpodcast@gmail.com. This podcast is inspired by Doctor Who.
The longest running sci-fi show in history.
And especially the revival spearheaded by Russell T. Davis.
Thanks to Russell.
Sydney Newman.
Verity Lambert.
Ron Grainer.
And all those involved in the adventures of our favorite Time Lord. Your work continues to inspire and entertain.
Hey,
haven't
what
even
about
got
me, Mickey, the one over here? Hey,
Sorry.
you,
The tin
Doctor,
dog.
don't forget me because you've assigned everybody
We'll
else.
mark that. I'll save that.
I was so confused. I was
'Cause
like,
I-
what are you talking about, Eugene?